my friends, it's Dan. Welcome back. Welcome to another plastic miniature review, this time for the tower set from Renedra, which either serves as a standalone tower, as depicted here, or as the gatehouse for their medieval castle set. And I want you to know right away, this is sponsored content. Renedra sent this to me to review for you guys. So I'm immensely grateful to them for sending a number of their scenery sets over our way. Excited too, as I said in the first video, that I think most of us are at least passingly familiar with Renedra. You've probably at least heard the name if you're in the wargaming space. But I, up until quite recently, only knew them as the company that produced the sprues on behalf of so many companies that we know, like Perry Miniatures, Gripping Beast, Shield Wolf, North Star, just to name a handful there. But they have a already quite extensive line of terrain that's all very reasonably priced. I'll have a link down in the description. I'll reference this at the end of the video as well. That even if this is not necessarily to your liking, I would strongly recommend you just go peruse the site, and you're going to find something. Like even now, having familiarized myself with the range, I still keep finding things or having people in the comments bring up a set that I wasn't aware of, and I'll rush back to the site to go check it out. So please, again, as a favor to me, go check their site out just to see what I'm talking about, because this is just a small sampling of the sets that they have available. I mentioned this serves as, it's a massive set, first of all, right? Like the box is gigantic. This is actually, I have two lighting setups here, camera setups. There's the far away one that I use for mostly book reviews and large sets like this one, and then I have a closer one for the smaller sets. This is my far away setup, and it's still, I can't even get close to fitting this box within the entirety of the camera shot there. So it's about a foot wide and maybe like 10 inches high, and then maybe about 3.5, 4 inches thick. And it's quite heavy too. I don't have a weight here, but it's a lot of plastic that comes inside of it. This, I think they mentioned, was specifically designed to work with Frostgrave. That's why there's actually like a fantasy accoutrement to the top piece here. So they wanted this to work in conjunction with Frostgrave, but it also serves, as I said, as the gatehouse for their medieval castle, if you wanted to use it that way, which we'll see in just a moment from the sprues. So if you were to pick it up for yourself, what you're going to get inside are 5 unique types of sprue and a couple of different amounts. So we'll go through them one at a time here. So this is the main wall section. You're going to get 4 copies of that sprue. You've got this top section here, right? You've got this floor section, like stone floor. You're going to have this optional door or, again, gate section. So you have one gate on either side of the bottom of the tower. This top piece for the top of the tower, as you can imagine, or this optional door if you're using it as a standalone tower, and then these fantasy corner pieces. You have 2 of these ramparts, which are, if you look at the back of it, we'll look at all these in detail in just a second, but you can see that the 2 halves go together, so you have 4 complete walls, right? So there you have it. So a big stack of sprues are going to come inside, and the instructions we saw on the last set, they came in a bag. This one, of course, is a box. The instructions are just on the back, so you can see it has a breakdown of all the sprues that I just explained to you, and it goes through step by step how you would assemble this. It looks like it's going to be very straightforward. You can see that there's basically just 4 walls to a section. You decide if you want to put on a door or a gate on the bottom section. You've got your like a higher up or low down section here, depending on how you want to use it. And then, of course, your very top piece up there. So I think it's going to be a breeze to snap together. If you're new here, though, welcome. What we're going to do is I'm going to isolate one each of this big stack of sprues. I want to show you the detail up close. I'm going to then assemble this bad boy, and then I want to show you how a bunch of different models from different manufacturers are going to look on top of this thing if you wanted to pick it up for yourself. So let's start with these ramparts here. Again, I'm going to just kind of skim through the sprue section here, but I do want to show off the detail on these. I'm going to show the back too, just in case you were thinking about using this for any kind of converting. But again, look at the detail on the stonework here. Right? It's really, really fantastic. Of course, the detail on these little gargoyles or grotesques is also exceptional. Right? Some torches here that can go down by the gatehouse if you wanted it to. So you're actually going to end up with 8 of those. Right? And then the wall sections, I think, are just duplicated. But that is really fantastic. And I think they're going to be a dream to paint up as well. Now let's look at the door section here. Once again, there are some optional pieces here depending on how you want to assemble this thing. Right, you're either going to have a leftover door or leftover gates. But once again, if we zoom in to look at the fine details here, you can see the skill that Renedra has from a production standpoint is really phenomenal. So yeah, even if you're using this as a gatehouse, you're then going to have this leftover door bit that you could use with something else, right? So that's pretty cool. You're going to end up with 2 of these top pieces here, which once again, from a conversion standpoint, you're probably only going to need 1. So you'll have 1 left over. These pieces, I'm even thinking about like how to use this in some other project if you didn't want to use them as the corner pieces here. So they're really, really excellent. Floor piece, it's pretty straightforward. I won't do a panning shot, but you see the bottom is just flat plastic. But again, you're going to get 2 of these, so 1 for the base and then 1 for the very top. Or again, you could just use the one on the very top and then you'll have a leftover one to use for some other project if you wanted to. You're going to have 2 of this wall section. Right. Show you the back of it too. So again, on the back of the box, it explains where these would go, but it can either be the bottom or the top, like windows looking out of it, depending on how you wanted to use it. So again, you're going to get 2 of this sprue as well. And then this is the main wall section. So you're going to get 4 of this sprue here. There's the back section. But once again, just really great detail on these. Such that I think, from a painting standpoint, you're going to be able to basically like just dry brush it gray, and you're going to end up with something really fantastic looking, just because there's so much detail here that's going to be picked up by a dry brushing, which is excellent. So again, 4 of this sprue. And there you have it. So let me cut now. I'm going to assemble this beast, and I'll see you in just a moment. Wait, can we talk about the back of this box for a second? Look down here at the credits. Look at all the names here that you'll probably be familiar. Every single one of them I think I've seen on a different miniature box from a different company. So of course you've got Tony and Paul from Renedra. Kevin Dallimore, I'm certain I've seen that name pop up before. TM Terrain, I think does painting for North Star, which makes sense because it says down here that Nick Irie of North Star coordinated the photography. And then Alan Perry provided the assembly instructions. So this is like the craziest joint venture I think that I've ever seen. It's very cool to see. Everything's still drying, but one more note on assembly, and I'll talk a little bit about this when I have the completely built model. The only section that had some separation on it when it was gluing were these top rampart sections. And so to address that, you could of course use a vise if you've got one handy, or try to weigh them down maybe, but I've found just painter's tape works very nicely because it comes off very easily once everything dries. So I just use that to apply some pressure just to squeeze them together. And you can see there's going to be some gaps. It's sort of unavoidable when we're talking about plastic like this. But 2 points. One is that if you're using plastic cement, as you should be, you'll have less separation anyway because it's going to melt and fuse the plastic together. I use super glue for all of my reviews just so I can pop things back apart afterwards. But also, once painted up, I think some of these gaps are going to completely disappear. So anyway, this is a simple solution that works very well for me. Alright, so I have everything assembled here, but I want to talk a little bit about assembly with this overhead shot before we switch to a side angle of the assembled tower and do some scale comparisons. So I want to show you first what's left over on the sprue, because I think the flexibility of this kit is a real selling point. So first, let's just show you what I've got left over. So again, I've assembled the structure as a tower. In this case, as I mentioned, you could also assemble it as a fantasy tower using some of these extra bits, or as a gatehouse for medieval castle, if that's something that you wanted to do. So this is everything I have left over. So again, you see the like more fantastical bits. Torches could easily be applied. I would do that after painting. And then you have these 2 gatehouse pieces that would go on the bottom section, which I'll show you in just a moment if you were going to be assembling it as a gatehouse. So you can see there's actually quite a bit left over, and I'm excited to use some of this stuff in some other terrain projects. Notably, I also have some of the gravestones from Renedra, and I'm going to be modifying some of these bits to make like some iron fencing around the gravestone. So we'll get to that in another video, but I did want to show you that I've got quite a bit left over here, even with, in my case, the fully assembled medieval tower, which is what I was going for. So I did want to show you just kind of each piece as I assembled it here and talk a little bit about the assembly before I put it all together for you. So this is the bottom section. The middle and the bottom section are functionally identical, except there's some extra pieces to put on there, these like buttresses that you would then glue on to the two sides. I'm doing mine as just a standalone tower, so I used one of the door options. This is the section that you would punch out if you were going to be assembling this as a gatehouse. So this whole middle section here, this is probably the better way to show you. This actually, if you just crease it, it snaps out. You can see right here that the connection points are designed to kind of break apart, right? So that is where you would then glue in your gate on both sides of the base of the tower if that was what you were going to be doing with yours. Right, so I assembled this piece first, and then that was very easy to do. Just glue the door right on the front, and then this middle section was functionally identical, except that it doesn't have a door and it doesn't have those buttresses that get glued on. So this is the section that just you can see goes right on top here. And if you wanted to, you could glue it in place. I'm going to leave mine detached even just for transportation purposes, but it also gives you some flexibility in how you put it together, which I'll show you with the side view. I think was probably best for that. And then the top piece actually took me a minute to figure out, because it was clear that they wanted this top floor to be not glued in. It specifically says that in the instructions, because they want you to be able to remove it for gameplay purposes. So you could also glue, there's another one of these trapdoors that you could glue on the base here, because this is supposed to be the top section. So there would theoretically be a ladder leading up through the base in order to get up here, but I might use that somewhere else, and I'm fine with suspending disbelief on that. So so in this case, I glued all this together, again much like the bottom and the middle sections, except that I then had a floor to glue in at the base of this structure, and then the ramparts up here at the top. I'm sure there's like a French word that is specific to the top part of a tower that is not coming to my mind, so I'll call them ramparts, but these sections up here, I initially tried gluing around these, like a topper, like imagine it like a hat that would just get dropped on. But it was clear to me that what you actually want to do is glue them straight onto the top part of the tower here, and then this section just slots right in, as you saw there. There are little notches here that stick out that allow it to drop on. If you're not going to be using it for like skirmish gaming, you could just glue it in place if that's something you wanted to do. And in that case, you actually wouldn't even have to glue this part in on the bottom. You could use that somewhere else if that's what you wanted to do. Let me switch the view here. I want to show you the side angle on this thing. Alright, so forgive the setup here. This is kind of the best thing I could do, because this thing is so massive that I really can't find a way to get it to fit in frame. So you're going to see some of my lighting setup here. But anyway, ignore that if you can. So let's talk dimensions then, just on the topic of height. So in terms of width, you got about 6 inches wide, a little bit under. And then you've got, it is 5 inches deep, right? So a little bit wider than it is deep. And then each section is about 3 inches in height, right? And I can't show you the full thing yet. I will in just a second. But if I drop this full thing on top, I'll just tell you, we're talking about 10 and a half, a little over, maybe like 10 3/4 inches in total height, because the ramparts up at the top add a couple of inches there. So this is where I did want to show off that, again, like if you have it set up as a tower, I guess let me do something like this just to show you this thing, the full height of what we're talking about here. It really is pretty spectacular. And again, I've got none of the additional like fantasy accoutrements up there on the top section. It would add a little bit more height to it as well. But what I wanted to show you in terms of versatility of this set is that if you were to, for example, in this case, I didn't glue together any of these sections, but if you were using it as a tower, you could glue all these sections together, and then just the top piece would be removable for gameplay purposes. However, if you don't do that, what you'll then have is a system that could be used either as a tower or as a gatehouse. Of course, the door, you're suspending disbelief a little bit that that's the front of a castle, but you can see here that if I then just drop this top section in, right, that's your gatehouse. And then in terms of height of the miniatures, I've got a number of manufacturers there. Names of the manufacturers or ranges are on their base. I'm also going to show you a shot overhead like of them standing on top of the tower, and in the middle section there, if you wanted to. I just wanted to give you some idea of just the sheer size of this thing, which I think would work really spectacularly, just even as like a centerpiece terrain set on your board. So I have a little scene set up here on the top. Remember that this was designed to work as a standalone tower, right? Just as like an impassable terrain piece if you're a Warhammer player or something like that, a medieval player. It was designed to be used in conjunction with their castle set as the gatehouse if you wanted it to, but it also had an eye toward Frostgrave specifically in mind. That's why it has some of these fantasy accessories that can be glued onto the sides. But I just wanted to show you how effective I think it is as a terrain piece, an interactive terrain piece in a game system like Frostgrave, like Mordheim, where you would actually want to have miniatures like moving around and fighting on top of it. And you can see very comfortably you can fit a lot of miniatures on top here from a number of different manufacturers here as well. And then of course this top section, if you don't glue it in, can be removed, as I mentioned, and you can fit even more in down here. Maybe have a little ladder or something set up. And I put these guys flush against the wall just so you can see from a dimension standpoint just how many you could theoretically cram in here, right? 20 by my count on 25mm round bases, which is what Frostgrave figures typically come on. So what's the final verdict? I think this is spectacular as either a like standalone impassable terrain piece for a mass battles game system like Warhammer Fantasy or any historical game. Of course, you got bits in here to build it either way. It's going to be great for that. As part of another terrain set, right? Like this is designed that it could work as a gatehouse or as a tower in conjunction with like the Renedra wall sections, or maybe you've got wall sections from another source. This is going to work quite nicely with that. As a functional terrain piece, like an interactive terrain piece for skirmish games like Mordheim, Warhammer Skirmish, or Frostgrave, as this was designed to work in conjunction with. As we saw, this is going to be great for that too. Let me actually just pick you up, just to show you one more time. Again, just how cool figures are going to look up on top of this thing. But I'm even thinking about it in unorthodox ways. I actually think this would work well as like a Warhammer 40k terrain piece. Like, look at the kind of gothic architecture, especially in those like wall sections there. I think that it would look really, really great. French Crusade, something like that, just because of some of the religious iconography that's on it. It's going to be great for any table. And the price point, I think, is right too, given the sheer size of this. The weight in plastic, I don't think I can possibly overstate. This is definitely the heaviest set that I've ever dealt with. And this is 37 pounds, I think, last time I checked on their website. I'll have a link down in the description if you wanted to check it out for yourself. As this, I think, centerpiece terrain set for any kind of board is a great price, great thing to consider. And as I also mentioned, if you're using it as a gatehouse, and if you're clever, because you're going to have so many leftover bits here, right, that we saw earlier, like there's still a lot of stuff on these sprues, I think you could actually make a couple of terrain pieces out of this by, right, maybe like making a either shorter tower or a gatehouse out of the one section. You're actually going to have that bottom piece that's on there as well. So you're going to have this kind of leftover structure that could either be a standalone building or something like that, some kind of thatched roof to go on top. So there's a lot that you can do with this set, just given its inherently flexible nature, that it's designed to be used in a couple of different ways. So I'm sure you guys down in the comments can think of a dozen things that haven't even occurred to me, but I think this is well worth checking out and considering if you're looking to add some presence to your battlefield with a nice large, as I said, centerpiece terrain piece like this. Massive thanks once again to Renedra for sending this to us to check out. I've got a number of Renedra reviews left. I said at the beginning of the video, I really would encourage you to go check their website out, even if this isn't the thing that you're most excited about. I am truly like constantly stunned by how much stuff they have. Kind of kicking myself for not exploring sooner in my hobby career, and it ranges the spectrum in terms of price point too. We just saw like their log cabins that are 10 pounds all the way up to, you know, like 37 pounds for the larger things like this. So there's something in there for everybody. I think there's something in there in terms of price point for everybody. So go check them out. Again, link down in the description. Appreciate all you for dropping by for this one in the meantime. And until next time, happy gaming.